Welcome to Fieldsports Britain. Coming up, 20 foxes in a night. We ask, are vixens having 2 litters of cubs this year? We're at a catering college teaching the chefs of tomorrow how to prepare and serve game. First, the very best of Scottish sport. It's a Subaru-sponsored McNab of venison, salmon and grouse. Ah, Scotland, when better to embrace this land of sporting promise than August, when there are so many options to choose from. There are the reds, and the roe, the salmon, and of course, the grouse. We've had a taster of all 3 in the past week. The stalking is for a future programme, but we've set ourselves the challenge of bringing all this fantastic game together in a brunch on the glorious 12th. We want to prepare and eat the first grouse of the season anywhere in the world. To do this, we need a car sure-footed enough to get us to the riverbank and the moor in comfort and with speed. So Subaru have given us a sparkly new Outback to play with. But no car achieves its true potential without a gifted driver. Some say he can eat a fruit pastel without chewing it, a deep-fried donut without licking his lips, 3 shredded wheat is a breeze, his blood type is listed as tartan, he can hurl a haggis further than Fatima Whitbread, and he regularly flings Fatima across the Firth of Forth. It's the McStig. Otherwise known as Neil McGowan, proprietor of the East Hoch House Hotel near Pitlochry, he has the challenge of trying to catch a salmon and shoot a grouse all on the 12th. He then has to dash back to the hotel and prepare them before lunch. Normally Neil wouldn't have bothered getting his waders on, let alone his tackle out, because we've had 24 hours of non-stop rain and the river is high, very high. Neil has travelled all over the world in search of the big fish, but it was here on his own back door that he landed his personal best in the spring run.
Nice springer, 30 pounds, sea liced, caught on the fly and released as well. So it was a very exciting half an hour, 3/4 of an hour with a beautiful fish. In actual fact, I saw the fish rise fully out of the water, and I had a friend behind me. I said, "Did you see that fish?" I said, no, I said, it's got to be at least 15, 25, 30 pounds. It's a beautiful fish. It looks as though it's just on the run. Anyway, six casts later on, I said, we're in. And it was that fish. It must have been that fish. So after about 3/4 of an hour, Colin came up, helped me land it, took some photographs, and then released it. It was a great day.
But your wife says you travelled all around the world fishing, and you get your biggest.
Yes, I go to Norway. I fished the Namsen. I fished Alta, hoping for the really big one. And it's on my doorstep. You know, why do I have to venture to these places now to fish when these fish are now coming back into the river system? So which is great.
It's a brave effort by the McStig, but we go for the full-back plan. There are plenty of salmon in his fridge back at East Hoch House, but there certainly aren't any grouse. We've got to get one of those now. These gathering guns are the guests of Alan Thornton, who's been shooting the glorious 12th here for many years. We first joined him in 2009 for one of our first ever programmes. Then it took 2 hours to bag our first bird. We'll need to have better luck this time if we want to be eating grouse before anyone else. On the moor, gamekeeper David gives us a safety briefing. He stalks the land, but apart from a bit of pest control, this moor is wild and the birds are left to do their own thing. No one knows what to expect.
And we'll try and keep a straightish line.
We get lined up. Those on the outside will walk much further than those tucked in the middle, and we'll be walking for about 4 hours. It's hard work, but surrounded by this scenery and with the anticipation of some of the most challenging birds in the world, it's all worthwhile. Incredibly, we walk 5 yards and some birds get up. The signs are promising. Feeling confident, we decide that Neil needs to shoot the bird that ends up on the table. We don't have to wait long. And he's off, taking a brace for good measure. Neil slams on the brakes and ditches the waterproofs for the whites. Neil has to prepare a dish incorporating salmon, red deer and our grouse. He starts with the salmon.
There's a panted fillet of salmon, on baby ratatouille with a prawn white wine sauce, and finish with lovely west coast of Scotland longestine.
Voila, looks good enough to eat. But we need to get that grouse on the heat. Neil has taken the breasts off the bird, exposing the heather in its crop.
What's that actually in it?
That's what it feeds on, heather.
No way.
Yeah. That's why you can't hand rear grouse.
But
They can do it.
seeing that in
They've tried it using putting grouse in cages, young birds, and moving the cages on the grouse moor, and then trying to rear them that way. But it's not been successful at all. Right, here we go. A little bit of seasoning. I'm doing this the hot version of oil, extra virgin. And I'm doing this with as I said before, with a pork reduction and wild mushroom sauce on a horseradish mash.
With the grouse resting, time to get the venison fillet in the pan.
Just flaming it in a little bit of brandy.
The two meats will complement each other on the one plate. Back on the moor, and there are some interesting members in the party. Graham McKinley is a well-known Glasgow gunsmith and has a side-by-side that comes with some fascinating history.
It's a boss of London. I've had it for probably 10 years now. And probably regarded as one of the best side-by-sides in the world. And it's London built. It was built in 1918, and it's got some interesting provenance in that it once belonged to the surgeon who photographed the Loch Ness Monster for the first time. So it's quite an interesting one. But super gun to shoot with, and I'll never part with it. So it'll eventually go to my son George. But yeah, they're beautifully made, and I suppose the balance of them is spectacular.
Time check, and it's 11:20. We have to rest the venison. Neil finishes the dishes. Job done. The first grouse eaten in 2011 in the world, probably.
All shot and on the table by 11:30.
But now the McStig is needed back up on the moor. The Argo delivers him to the line, and we're off again. We're seeing lots and lots of birds, which is great news, and a bit surprising for David at the halfway point.
Absolutely delighted what I've seen so far. I mean, we counted this with 4 or 5 pointers, and to me it was just desperate. But we've come out now and we've walked half an hour, and I think we've flushed 42 birds. Good coveys at 8s, 9s, so very pleased, absolutely delighted.
We've also been selective with what we've been shooting.
What we do, the first covey that got up, nobody shot at, which was excellent because I shouted not to shoot because the grouse were too young. We call them cheapers. You can physically see they're smaller, they're not fully feathered, and we just let them be because, again, they'll be either for later on or next year's stock, Black grouse, they don't come into the 20th of the month, so we leave black grouse. We've seen 1 or 2 already this morning. We've put up a grey hen with some youngsters again. They were just small cheapers, but we don't shoot the black cock or grey hens. We just let them be. Lovely birds to see, and they're nice to see in the hill on a shoot day.
With some welcome breathers, we make it all the way round the moor. Most of the guns have had a shot, if not bagged a bird. For Scott, he's got his first ever grouse. He won this day's shooting in a charity auction. So does he appreciate why people get so intoxicated by grouse shooting?
Excellent, fantastic day out. Didn't really know what to expect, but it was a super day. 4 hours yomping around the hills, made it all worthwhile, I have to say. Great bunch of guys, great crack, couldn't have done better. And to get the first grouse on the first day of the first shoot was fantastic, very memorable, and a real privilege. I'd recommend it to anybody.
13 brace.
13 brace, isn't it?
Right over. It's been a fabulously, gloriously glorious 12th, thanks to the birds and to the company, which is why Alan does this every year.
Super day. I think it was 13 guns in the line and 13 brace. We're back for the day. Mainly all young birds, which is good to see. So I think the boys did a good job as well. And they were spread out throughout the whole day as well. It wasn't just a covey and then a long wait and a covey. So good shooting all round and an excellent day.
Why is it important for you to do this? This is something that is obviously very dear to you.
I believe this is my 20th year coming to this very moor, and some of the team members have been coming for all those years, so it's just a bit of tradition. First day of the season, getting out and about, having some fun, and that's the start of the season. A few more grouse days to go, and then the pheasants are and on it goes, so we have fun.
Time to head back to East Hock House at a more sedate pace this time for some food, drink and analysis of the day. In 2011 there's even enough birds for the guns to take some home. Let's hope other moors are producing surprises too. Now from the Scottish moors to the Fieldsports Channel News Stump.
This is Fieldsports Britain News. We start this week with an exclusive, and the League Against Cruel Sports has got egg on its face this week after two of its investigators were caught on their own covert camera. The hidden camera was discovered by local field sports enthusiasts who repositioned it to find out who the nosy parkers were. On the right is Paul Tilsley, who runs the controversial Baronsdown deer enclosure in Somerset, where animals have died of disease and starvation. On the left is Paul Shepherd, Head of Investigations at the League. The National Trust for Scotland, which carries out one of the bloodiest deer culls at its Mar Lodge estate in the Cairngorms National Park, has admitted it hasn't done enough shooting and so does not deserve its £126,000 annual grant from Scottish Natural Heritage. It's believed SNH is forcing estates to shoot huge numbers of deer for what it calls conservation reasons, though many suspect it wants to reduce deer numbers to a point that sporting estates will no longer be able to offer deer stalking. Britain's handful of anti-gun campaigners are trying to change the name of Birmingham's Gun Quarter, once the gun-making centre of the world. Birmingham City Council announced the name change after receiving a petition of just 50 names from antis. Shooters have now gathered nearly 4,000 names, and the council is having a rethink. To add your name to the petition, visit www.savethebirminghamgunquarter.co.uk. You're now up to date with Fieldsports Britain News. Stalking the stories, fishing for facts. Back to Charlie.
Thank you, David. Get a haircut. Now, foxes. Have they had 2 litters this year? We're out with the legendary Roy Lupton on a red letter night. Roy wants a big bag today, and he's got the kit to do it. This is a newly converted Land Rover Discovery, created not by B.A. Baracus, but Brian. Brian was given the Disco and spent a couple of £100 getting it an MOT and putting in a new sunroof. Not to increase daylight into the cab, but to provide a perfect position to shoot those pesky foxes.
Do you want it? He said, because it's worth nothing. So I said, yeah, I'll have it. So I took it, got somebody to cut a hole in the roof. The seat is an old centre seat from the back of a Land Rover 110 that I owned years ago, and I took out for the same purpose. Yeah, so it's really come together for virtually nothing, only the cost of having the hole in the roof. I'm a bit longer in the body than Roy, and I can sit on the seat and I can shoot off the roof. But Roy also likes to use a bipod on his rifle, so that means another 4 or 5 inches up, and he's a bit shorter in the body, so we have his booster seat here all ready for him.
Is it working for you?
This is going to be our first time out, so hopefully we're going to christen it well.
It's not the easiest carriage to get yourself seated, but once you're in, it's the best seat in the house. The fox numbers have been extraordinary this year, and the land we are going to tonight is Fox Central. There are 2 pieces of land we'll be shooting over, but Roy wants to go all night, and he's set himself a goal.
I'm hoping for a good night. We've got about 3,500 acres that is halfway through cutting, and we did 1 field the other night and got 6 on there. And that was just about 250 acres, so if we've got that sort of fox density all over it, we could be in for a bit of a bumper night tonight. It would be nice to get 20, so we'll go for that and see how we do. It all depends, whether our cameraman fades away a little bit, because he's a bit of a Jessie when it comes to staying out all night.
We arrive and meet up with another of Roy's friends, Alex. As it's Brian's baby, he'll christen the vehicle and we'll shoot first. Roy will drive and handle the lamp.
We'll start off with the white light. If we've got a fox that's jumpy, then if you pick him up with that, we've got an amber filter and a red filter to work with. So as I say, if we pick one up or pick a set of eyes up and he starts moving, then we'll just use the amber light on him.
We mount up and the first field shows promise, but Roy has been here already as this was the first crop off this farm. They're a bit spooked here. We don't waste time and make our way to what he thinks will be the land of plenty. This is more like it. Brian opens his account but realises the shot can only be taken with the engine off. The V8 petrol is pretty steady, but the diesel is not stable enough. Some of the foxes are keeping their distance.
You bugger.
Others come right in. We soon have to stop to drop off the foxes we've shot. We have a pause. Already we've had a successful night with Brian's 7 and he's happy with the disco's performance and his own.
The best night I've had out on the foxes was 6, and that was on a small area, only about 150 acres. But 7 in this time that we spent tonight is fabulous. I'm really pleased. And we stand the chance of shooting plenty more, I think.
One thing we're hoping to do by keeping on top of these animals is to improve the biodiversity of the local area. Apart from foxes, we aren't seeing much else.
We came in on this field and I've never ever seen foxes like it. It's just ridiculous. We've had 7 so far and I don't know how many more we've seen, and we're just going round shooting, pick up another one, carry on. We've had 2 foxes coming in from different directions at the same time on the squeak. It's as I say, I've never seen a field like this. There's just foxes coming from everywhere, and as we've seen when we've been driving around, that's meant that there's hardly any other wildlife on it. We're seeing very few skylarks. We've seen no partridges, very few rabbits, no hares left, and that's just down to a huge population of foxes.
Time for Brian and Roy to swap over. We go to the second field and Roy gets 2 within a matter of minutes. As well as foxes, there are loads of badgers about too. It's been an incredible night and we lose count. When we lay them all out, there are 21 carcasses on the ground. Tired but satisfied, Roy has delivered once again. He feels these fields had the potential to deliver, and they have. He has surpassed his goal and achieved a personal best.
Yeah, not a bad night's work. Bearing in mind we started at 10:30 and we finished up at 2:30 with 21. I mean, some of them came in really, really well. So I just started squeaking and we had one group of 3 on the trot that came in. And others, they weren't quite so obliging and we had to hunt them a little bit. But yeah, there was you could see the ones that knew knew the game with the lamp and knew what they were doing, and then we had some inexperienced ones as well, but just phenomenal. I still can't get over how many foxes were over on basically 2 fields. It's mind-boggling the amount of foxes that are here.
How many do you reckon we saw? So we shot 21, how many do you reckon we saw?
21 in, and I suppose we probably saw about another 10 or 12 easily, so a good number of foxes out there. As I say, it's all of the agencies and rescue centres and whatever else that say that you'll only have a very small amount of foxes holding one territory. Absolute pish. I mean, the amount of foxes that we saw out there tonight, I've never seen anything like it before.
And the Land Rover worked well too.
The vehicle did well. Brian's conversions did well, and I think we've had a cracking night, bit of a red letter night. So time to go to bed. We've got to get out and do some stalking in the morning.
Roy thinks the number of foxes is high this year. There is talk of foxes having 2 litters thanks to the warm weather. Certainly cubs of different sizes are being seen all over the country. We'd like to know what you think. Drop me a line, charlie@fieldsportschannel.tv, and we'll give you an update next week. Now to Hertfordshire, where the restaurant chefs of tomorrow are learning how to dazzle restaurant goers with game recipes. Lee Maycock faces 2 tough problems. The kids he teaches about cooking game meat are generally tough, urban kids who wouldn't know a partridge from a pigeon. And the few of them who have tried game before have found it tough, because the world is bad at cooking game. Sponsored by the Countryside Alliance Foundation's game marketing programme Game to Eat, Lee runs one-day courses at catering colleges teaching the chefs of the future about game. We join him on a course at Hertford Regional College, Broxbourne in Hertfordshire. Just a few miles from London, this is as far from game habitat as you can get.
The idea of today is to try and give the students an understanding of where games comes from. What they tend to get is when they order game is they'll get it in a plastic tray covered in a bit of cellophane. What we're doing is bringing game in its raw state, so it'll be fur and feathered game for them to get to look, understand, touch, feel, and then essentially cook with. So they get a better understanding of obviously where it's come from originally.
These students are not country lads and lasses. Only one of the 18 on the course today has used a gun before, out rabbit shooting with his uncle.
They might see the odd wood pigeon, they might see the odd muntjac, and possibly a pheasant if they get out, obviously into the countryside. But no, obviously they don't see a great deal. So again, hence the reason of sort of this workshop is to sort of try and give them an insight into what is out there, what's available. And they've all been sort of wanting to sort of see more. We did a skinning process where they were very interested in. We've just cooked 3 or 4 dishes and they've absolutely cleared everything. Said they enjoyed everything they tasted. So, and that's the first time for a lot of them. They've never seen a deer skinned. They've never seen a pheasant plucked. They've not tasted game. So, for them it's all new. But they were very sort of open-armed about welcoming the whole thing.
Lee grew up in rural Oxfordshire. He now lives in Hertfordshire, which is much more urban.
If 1 or 2, it makes them sit up and think, this is something I could get interested in, this is something I'd like to pursue, and go and join a local gun club or something, or just get themselves in the countryside a bit more. And yeah, absolutely, I think if we can, we're not going to turn everybody, but all we need is just 1s and 2s in these large groups, and it'll make a huge difference.
Then there's the matter of how to cook game.
So you talk to anybody in the street and they will tell you that the game comes across as sort of tough and dry and overcooked a lot of the time, and I think that's the big message we're trying to get across here, is that it doesn't need to be overcooked. It's that sort of just cook that we're looking for. And if you'll eat your steak rare, eat your piece of venison exactly the same way.
Here's Lee's recipe for a carpaccio using any venison fillet. He uses a lean piece of red deer meat, which is not considered as good as roe or the best sika. It still turns out delicious. Roll it in juniper dust, smoked sea salt and cracked black pepper. Roll it tight in cling film. Put it in the freezer for a couple of hours to let the salt start to do its work to break down the enzymes. You can then eat that piece of meat like cured meat. No cooking by heat at all. Lee also demonstrates for the students a pan-fried pigeon breast with lemon-crushed peas, a pheasant breast wrapped in bacon and served on a bubble and squeak, and a loin of venison served with butternut squash and black pudding bonbons.
Countryside Alliance, it's their campaign to promote British game, to promote consumption. Game was consumed last year on 57 million occasions, so it's definitely on the increase. And I think if we just keep these workshops going and educating the youngsters of tomorrow, they can obviously carry on this tradition, and we can all keep eating game for a long time.
Well, we're back next week as usual from 7 o'clock on Wednesday nights. This has been Fieldsports Britain, and if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button, which could be there or it might be down there depending on which version you're using. If you want to go to our own website, fieldsportschannel.tv, put your email address into our constant contact form, or click to like us on Facebook in the same place, or follow us on Twitter, and you will receive news of our fabulous programme every week.